Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott and I'm the Emperor of Stomaria. Today we're going to be discussing Stamaria's positions when it comes to national and international events. So those of you who have been following us for any length of time will know that Stamaria very rarely discusses national and international events. So this might be the UK general election or the US presidential election or even the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza. These are all events, these are all topics that we tend to avoid. And we don't talk about them for three reasons. First, it has absolutely nothing to do with Stamaria. For instance, we look across the pond and we can see that there's been a US presidential election where Donald Trump has once again become the president-elect. Okay, does this have a direct impact on Stamaria? No. Would having a conversation about this impact the outcome? No. And would such a discussion in any way advance the values or the objectives of Stamaria? No. So what would be the point in having that conversation, in discussing that topic? From my own perspective, there is simply no value in it. Second, because of my position as the Emperor of Stomaria, I do have to be careful about what kind of positions I take with regards to certain topics or events that are going on around the world, because these will be interpreted as the positions of Stamaria itself. Now, this is not an unjustified assumption, because Stamaria, after all, is largely an extension of my own values, my own aspirations, and my own ideals. So when it comes to monetary policy, or personal liberty, or voluntary taxation, or ecology and the environment, these are all things that I believe in and consequently have been fed through Stamaria. So when I have an opinion about some event going on halfway across the world that has no bearing or relevance to Stamaria, a lot of people would make the justified assumption that that is also the position that Stamaria takes. And when you get into that nitty-gritty sort of detail, then things become a lot more messy. And this wouldn't be an issue if there was actually a good enough reason to discuss it. So for instance, when it came to Brexit or COVID, these are things that we briefly touched upon beforehand. So we had Brexit as being an issue that did have an impact on Stamaria, because at the time we imported our silver from the European mainland. And consequently, after Brexit, we had to cease that because the VAT-free silver that we managed to acquire from the European mainland was no longer accessible to us. And we had to shift gears. We had to transition to a different medium of exchange, which is why back when this was all occurring, we transitioned from primarily acquiring silver to acquiring gold, because gold, if purchased in the UK, is VAT-free, whereas silver is not. And then COVID, obviously, I don't think I need to necessarily delve into the reasons to why that had an impact on Stamaria. But for all of that, if it doesn't have an impact on Stamaria and it's going to overcomplicate things, it simply won't be discussed. And third, it's because if I did start talking about these national and international events, started picking sides, started taking formal positions on behalf of Stamaria with regards to these events that are going on across the world, then where would I stop? Because obviously you have the US presidential elections, you have Gaza, you have Ukraine. These are common talking points in and amongst the internet dwellers. However, I have a great deal of disdain for a lot of these people. The people that self-aggrandize, the people that virtue signal. Look at me, I have changed my Facebook profile picture to blue and yellow in solidarity with Ukraine. I mean, do me a favor. Most of these sorts of people would have given Ukraine a second thought for the last 2 years or so, and have more than likely jumped on another 47 trends since then. Perhaps they've changed their Facebook profile picture to Peanut the squirrel. Who knows? Now, the issue from my own perspective is that I'm not only relatively well versed with regards to the US presidential elections or Gaza or Ukraine, but I'm also interested in a wide range of other ongoing conflicts and crises that are currently going on around the world, but simply aren't considered important enough by most people to discuss. So for instance, I'll often see people posting online, taking a position with regards to the Israeli-Gazan conflict or the Israeli-Lebanese conflict. Whether or not you call it a conflict or a military operation or a war, it's obviously down to the perspective of the individual, but the ongoing situation in that region. There will be people from both sides of the aisle dying on their hill, making their stand, defending their positions passionately, despite often having absolutely zero skin in the game, in the sense that they're neither Israeli, nor Lebanese, nor Palestinian. They are not Jewish, they are not Muslim. They're simply people out there picking a side for whatever reason, which they are obviously perfectly entitled to do, and they are prepared to defend that position to the grave. Fine. So why do they not have that kind of passion, that kind of interest, that kind of mentality when it comes to every other conflict going on in the world? Why is this one special? So do they have an opinion on the Myanmar civil war, or the Sudanese civil war, or the Somali civil war? What about the ongoing issues in the Congo or Syria? What about the tensions between Venezuela and Guyana? These are all things that are going on. So if you don't have a position on these, then why don't you? And of course, that is a rhetorical question, because I already know the answer. It's because the politicians, the media, the influencers, and of course, the algorithm has already told you what is worth discussing and what isn't. It's a case of having some people's lives in one conflict in one part of the world being worth far less than another conflict in another part of the world. And that is a simple fact. A lot of these people are trading in blood, social media clout, self-aggrandizement, virtue signaling, so that they can be cool, they can be edgy, they can be part of the crowd, the mind hive. It is insufferable to me that this sort of thing goes on, but that is just the reality that we live in. But as I say, from my own perspective, if I am going to be talking about things like Gaza and Ukraine and taking formal positions on them, then I would of course have to discuss all of these other dozens of conflicts and civil wars and brewing tensions across the world over, because if I didn't, then I would be no better than the social media vampires that are trying to extract some kind of prestige or clout in and amongst their peers by discussing these issues, and these issues alone, because that is the trending issue of the day. So from my own perspective, I've got three options. One, I could sell my soul, and I could join the ranks of those who simply follow the algorithm, who follow the trend, that talk about things that the media and influencers tell them to talk about, and shut out everything else that's going on around the world. I will never do that. Two, I could talk about absolutely everything that is going on around the world, because these events do have an impact on the lives of tens or hundreds of thousands of people, even millions in a lot of cases. But if I did that, then I would be dedicating all of my time, my energy, and my content to talking about things that have nothing to do with Stamaria, that have no impact or relevance to Stamaria. And so we go for option 3, which is we talk about things that only have a direct impact on Stamaria. And in doing so, I am able to dedicate more of my time, my energy, my resources into pushing Stamaria forward. And that is what this is about. If it's not relevant to what we are building, if it's not relevant to what we are doing, then it simply won't be discussed. If you want to learn more about Stamaria or play an active role in our development and expansion, visit our website at www.stamaria.com and find out what it means to be a Stamarian.